And we're back yet again, another Friday, destination unknown. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. This is going to be a good one.
Yes, Vin and Dave here. We are back once again. We are talking tonight about what I think is maybe the greatest meme yet. It certainly, I think, is going to end up being more powerful than... what was I trying to say? The frog, Pepe. Pepe. I think it is going to be more powerful than Pepe. We are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the NPC meme tonight. The NPC meme. You just got a chance to start checking out some of these.
I did. So when we first talked about this, my original thought was, we're going to talk more about the simulation hypothesis and NPCs. And I think this is related. But
we are. It is definitely part of that.
Yeah. And but I had no idea it had memed so epically over the past few weeks.
It's actually just been over the past few days, so this is like hyper topical that we're getting into. But before we do that, we are tearing into 2 bottles of wine this evening. This is the last bottle from Laura. This is it's called Chami, and we were saving this thing. It's got these really cool tribal, indigenous-looking masks on it. This is a cab. It's 2016. Is that right?
Let's see, 2017 cab.
2017 cab?
Yep, Western Cape, South Africa.
Oh, it's a so I'm assuming these are probably African masks, probably of one of the tribes in that region. So it could be Zulu. Looks like it could be Zulu.
Yeah.
So that's very, very cool. It's perfect, actually. Masks. We will be talking a lot about masks this evening. And then you got a bottle of Oberon.
Yes, indeed.
The Oberon, Napa County Cabernet Sauvignon. I think that one's a 2016, which is also good because Oberon, as we when we saw each other tonight, I said, what is Oberon? That sounds familiar. It's the king of the fairies in Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yes.
So, yeah, because we're going to be talking about narrative structure. We're going to be talking about masks, all of that tonight. This one, I've got so much to say on this NPC meme, so I don't just want to be the only person talking about this. You're going to have to interrupt me. Please, I'm giving you permission. I'm actually admonishing you to please interrupt me significant number of times tonight. This wine, the Chami wine from South Africa, that's from wink.com.
Yes.
So Laura she got a gift certificate at wink.com, which enabled us, she just put it in the name, show@vinarmani.com, and that enabled us to get 4 great bottles of wine. The shipping ended up being free. Wink.com did all the shipping for us. Listeners can become wine sponsors in the same way. It's the easiest way to do it. Go to vinarmani.com/wine. And you are going to get $20 off if you want to do their wine club, which means that you can go and get your palate, do your palate tasting and all of that, do the little palate test, and they'll tell you what's good for you. Or you could just get a gift certificate and send it off to us. We would love that. More wine equals more great shows. So, yeah.
And the more wine we have, the more coherent. Oh, wait, that might be the wrong word. Incoherent? No.
I think we do pretty good. I think we can handle it over the course of 2 hours. We're both experienced wine drinkers. So
we are.
Thank you again to Laura. That was 4 great bottles. We really enjoyed them. So let's talk about. You had said you thought we were going to talk about what we had previously talked about in terms of NPCs. So let's rewind the clock. And why don't you bring us back to what we were talking about? Because that was before this meme came out.
Oh yeah. So to define some terms, right?
Okay,
so
yes,
NPC is a non-player character. For those in the audience who don't play video games, you basically have, when you're interacting with the video game, and you interact with other characters, they may or may not be other real people. Like if it's literally just you against the computer, then everybody else is an NPC, a non-player character.
Exactly.
If it's a massively multiplayer game, then some of the people are real and some are NPCs. And so the theory with the simulation hypothesis is, well, maybe we don't have living people inhabiting all of these bodies. Maybe some are just part of the simulation, and they're here for whatever purpose.
To move the narrative forward, right? Because that's basically what like an NPC will do. You'll go into a village and you'll talk to somebody, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're looking for the sword of something? Well, you should see my brother Sam. He's a blacksmith." Or, or a little girl says, "I lost my kitty in the woods. If someone could find them, I would love to give them a reward." And then you're like, "Okay, now I have a quest." Like, boom, the quest. Oh, go find her kitty in the woods,
And then at the end, you're like, "Yay, I got 1 copper. I'm rich."
Right. Now, the first time I heard NPC was actually not video game related, but a role playing game like Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right. So I think that's when it was initially started to be used. Was it's any character in the adventure who isn't being played by one of the players. So it usually would be like the dungeon master or whoever's running the quest would be like speaking in the voice of this character or whatever, and generally they do like the same thing. That's the whole thing about the NPC, right? Is that they're like, they have a very limited artificial intelligence, right?
Right.
A very limited number of responses. Sometimes you go back and talk to them, they'll just say the exact same thing over and over.
As if you had never talked to them before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yep. You go in to talk to the bartender and it's like, "Hello, welcome to the bar. Would you like a drink?" And then you come back 10 minutes later. "Hello, welcome to the bar. Would you like a drink?"
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the idea of the non-player character, the NPC. And we had talked about them exactly in this vein, in the vein of, well, if we're in a simulation, maybe some of the more, let's say, dull individuals that you would meet who might actually act that way, who might actually act in a way that it's just kind of like same thing over and over and over again. Maybe they're just NPCs.
Yep.
Maybe that's a level of consciousness. So there's been this meme, the NPC meme. You just got a chance to check out some of them.
I wasn't aware that this was such a phenomenon.
It's new.
Brand new.
It's just blown up like this week.
And those of you that follow me on Twitter know that I don't tweet often. So days go by in between me actually looking at Twitter. And Vin said, "You got to check this out." And sure enough, like page after page after page of these different memes. I'm like, wow, these guys are creative.
Yeah, the thing is, it's an easy meme to do. It's based on Wojak, who's the feels guy. So people can go, if you're listening or whatever, you can go and check it out. Wojak, you'll recognize him if you know anything about memes. He's like just a head. Well, that's the Well, they can't see that.
They can't see that.
No.
Never mind.
So basically, it's Wojak is like not shoulders. I don't know what that amount is called, but he's like a head and a neck and a little bit of the bust. Shoulders. A bust. He is. Yeah, he's a bust. And he's a black and white drawing of a very kind of simple face of a guy. And in the standard Wojak is kind of expressionless, but then depending on what expression Wojak has, he's meant to represent an expression. And so the way that I've always viewed, so you have memes that are different things, but the way that the Wojak meme has always been used is a Wojak meme, appropriate to our wine, is so often used as a mask. So you'll have a picture, and then a Wojak meme will be put over the top of, say, the person's head, if it's like an actual photo, or he'll be given a particular emotion. There's one in particular where it's like a pink Wojak, and he's like bleeding out of his eyes, and he's like really upset. And this is like a really, really pissed off person. So what I've always viewed him as, and I think that this is a fair way of looking at him, is he is a dramatic mask. Which the Greek term for that is persona. That's where we get the term persona, personality, like person.
The comedy and the tragedy mask.
Yes, they would wear these exactly.
Yep.
That's what most people would know it as, right? Where they have the laugh now, cry later, and it's the two masks that symbolizes drama.
Yes.
Right? We use those two masks together to symbolize drama, and one is smiling and one is frowning. Well, this is Wojak. Right? Wojak is a version of that. He's even all white, then he's drawn in black, the same way as these masks. Like, so this is a very, very old symbol, archetypal symbol. So he's this mask. And so then the NPC meme is a gray version of that, and with a very simple eyes, nose, like a stick figure, and is meant to represent kind of an automaton, not a human, in the Wojak. So but also a mask. So it's the mask of an automaton.
Yeah. Which is why they simplified the shape face and the shape of the nose and the shape of the mouth, simplified to the point where they're all identical.
Well, that's the other part about it, is that it's supposed to be completely identical, because Wojak he's kind of a unique person, and he does represent the feelings of the individual. Right? So he's meant to represent an individual who's feeling a certain way. He's actually, the nickname is the feels guy. Right? So he's an emotional creature. He's meant to represent certain emotions, whereas the NPC does not have emotions. It's like an artificial intelligence. It's like a robot.
Yeah, and you can actually see Wojak, like his eyes change shape. They get wider or narrower or whatever, depending on, what's going on in the scene. And, he could be smiling, he could be frowning. So his face does change expression, whereas the NPCs don't at all.
NPCs don't change.
The design, yeah.
And so the idea behind this and why it's been powerful is that basically what these NPCs are used to do in these memes is they're to represent people who are ideologically possessed. And they will just say the catchphrase, the talking point. You were giving an example. Maybe you should give the example that you were giving beforehand, where you were talking about sort of the two different veins of, like, if someone's a corporate spokesperson, you might expect to hear one thing, but then these people are like that version, but not. So if you want to like tell the story, because it was a good story. It's perfect.
So, right. So just within the past week or two, WWE is actually, and we're going to talk about wrestling just for a little bit.
It always comes back to wrestling.
But they've come under fire, some criticism, because they have a show scheduled for Saudi Arabia. And we all know the Saudi Arabian reporter was just killed. And so having them go to Saudi Arabia to put on a show is causing a bit of controversy. People are asking for them not to go, particularly because Linda McMahon is actually a member of the Trump White House. And so, yeah, she is.
What does she do?
Small Business Administration.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah. And I mean, of the two of them, you got Vince, who runs, this wrestling empire, and you got Linda, who's more in the political world.
Right.
Power couple, serious power couple.
They have been for a long time.
Yeah. So they're getting all this criticism, and over the past week, 3 different people, Triple H, Randy Orton, and somebody else, I believe, all came out and use the same phrasing. And this is something that you see really often in the news. You can actually find YouTube videos where they have compiled together a bunch of clips.
Oh, those are crazy. Yeah.
And reporters from across the country are delivering the news and a specific story. They'll say a specific line the exact same way, even if the line is, maybe tinged with a little bit of bias or whatever. They're delivering the line in the same way, because they all got it from the same source, So the source that they got the story from, provided the talking points. And so all of these reporters are basically sticking to the talking points. The same with WWE. They go on, they do interviews, whatever. They're sticking to the talking points that were provided by the corporation. Now, in a corporate setting, that's not that bad, because, if you're, you have to maintain a certain image, a corporate image, so your stock doesn't plummet, that sort of thing.
You've got a corporate strategy.
Right. And so you advise the people who are going to be talking to the press, here are your talking points, and stick to that and you'll be fine. The problem is that this has now become organic, inorganic. I mean,
well, that's the question, and this is what I want to dive into, and this is why I've got a lot to say about this, because it's something I've been talking about for the last year. So on the talking point, so obviously these NPC memes, why it's powerful is they will say these talking points, and those talking points have been parts of the culture. So it could be anything from like believe all women. They've got one that they've made up just for the NPCs that's #orange man bad.
Mm-hmm. Which, as we just saw, has leaked into actual usage by people who would agree with the things that are being said by the NPCs.
Right. So the NPCs are, so how they initially sort of came out was it was to parody SJWs. Mm-hmm. But as it grew, the people who were, let's say, who were more woke, who were more truly woke, especially on the libertarian side, well, then they started putting MAGA hats, Make America Great hats, onto the NPCs and having them parrot the Trump supporter lines, right?
Sure.
So it's like, it could go either way. The whole thing is that
absolutely.
the NPC is not, what I think is interesting is, as I've seen, because I've been looking and trying to see if there's anybody really analyzing this well. And it seems as though everybody who's sort of gloating about how great this is, particularly on YouTube, is saying, oh, this meme is against the left. It's against the left. Not at all.
No, it could be literally against anybody. Anybody with a rote response to stimulus.
That's right. And so, you know, when you're talking about the corporate talking points, I think where some people have gotten this wrong is that, so you see a lot of these NPC memes, and I think that people at first, without really thinking deeply about it, will say, oh no, it's like the corporate thing. These people are taking their orders from someone, and so what they've done is they've assigned that to the mainstream media. So whether it's MSNBC, whether it's CNN, you know, they've got many of these little scenes that are like, they've got the NPC head on top of a scene in CNN or whatever, or the late night shows like Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon. But I think what they don't understand, which I do, having been in TV for, 8 years or whatever, 6 seasons of a show, is that that's not actually the direction that it goes in. Cable news, the late night TV, Saturday Night Live, those are all reactive.
Yeah.
So they are taking the temperature of the culture first, and then they're taking the temperature of their audience and then attempting to play to their audience.
Yes.
They can't afford to be front running the culture. They can't afford to be trying to like push a meme into the culture. That happens. I guess that happens probably more, particularly not on the left, but I guess it probably happens a little more on the right. Like that's something Glenn Beck would do, but it never penetrated deep. He was able, when you're front running, you're able to you're an innovator, so you're throwing like the kernel of an idea. It's not at talking point level. When it's at talking point level, the level of consensus is already so high that if the news is using the term the resistance, that means it's already in the culture.
Yeah.
If they're using the term believe all women, if they're doing that whole thing, it's already in the culture.
Yep.
So the question is, how are these things getting into the culture to the point that, because they're already talking points by the time the news gets to them.
Sure.
The news people are NPCs as well. Mm-hmm. They're pulling from out of the culture. They're just trying to ride the wave of the culture of whatever their demographic is and appeal to whatever their demographic is. That's how it goes. They're not leading at all. So I think that's the real question is, how is it getting into the culture?
So it actually could be multiple sources. I mean, one, it could be just occurring naturally. Like a lot of these things do just occur naturally. And considering the environment that we have today with social media, ideas and memes spread like wildfire. I mean, really, lightning fast. What if you were a particularly skilled person at social engineering and you knew what buttons to push and you knew what words to say and you could get your ideas out in multiple platforms, and it resonated because it was designed to? And so this social hacking, there was actually a documentary. I don't recall the channel. I want to say it was like a British channel. Maybe it was Vice. Maybe Vice did it. I'm gonna have to go back and find it. But they interviewed a couple of these people who claimed that they were hired in many cases to do this exact thing. That they would, be hired to put an idea out there. They would do it. They had tremendous access to the various platforms, millions and millions of followers, and so they would put these thoughts, and the way they would come out, it would seem very, very organic. So it would seem like there was part of an idea, and then somebody else would have part of an idea, and then those ideas would come together, and then it would grow and build. But all of that was engineered and designed to do that.
See, I've had some conversations with some people who are like, Anarchy Ball was one that I had a really good conversation on my show one week on the Old Monday show that I used to do, where we were talking about memes as chaos magic. So as going back to, the mystery schools, the hieroglyphics and all of that, as being able to pull these things. And we were specifically talking about Pepe and the effect, to the point where you had Hillary Clinton, who was running for president, who literally got up and gave a speech about a cartoon frog and its negative impact on her campaign. And it's like, yo.
Yeah, and nobody thinks about the original artist who didn't intend any of that. And that guy was crushed, to the point where he was having emotional problems because his cartoon had been co-opted to, make these hateful memes.
Well, but then the question arises, and it's like, well, was that his cartoon in the first place, or did he channel something? And I think that's really the power of these memes, is that they are coming from the Jungian sort of unconscious, and they come and they manifest themselves, and some of them stick, and some of them obviously don't. But the ones that do, I think, are evidence of something greater at play. And it's just that we are able to sort of to have this very connected situation and to have this level of consensus. And so this is something that I've been talking about a lot, and I think that now it's starting to come to fruition in a place that people can understand. But I was very much seeing the parallel between social media with the nodes of human beings and Bitcoin with the individual Bitcoin nodes, whether it's mining nodes or whatever, trying to seek consensus and having this, this complete graph, or having this small world network, but where the interactions between the entire network, this one-to-many thing, that the ping pong between them is ultra fast to propagate transactions, to propagate blocks throughout the whole network, and that's what we're living in. And I mean, the NPC meme itself, the fact that we could have a conversation this quickly about something that is basically a week old is proof of the degree of connectivity that we now have, and it's only getting more so.
Yeah.
To the point where, I could see, we already have some situations like this about like big news where within a day the whole world is on the same page about it occurring.
Sure.
But we're going to get to a point where even small things is going to be within a day, everybody will be like on it. And at that point, it's this consensus. So what I've said is that we're moving from an authority-based organizational model to a consensus-based organizational model. And it's basically all about communication. Like the entire reason to have an authority-based organizational model where you have like top-down, hierarchical, giving down orders, and there's a chain of command. The whole reason why you have that is because you have a communication problem, right? Because it's very difficult for a general to, for instance, tell every infantryman where he needs to be.
Right.
In the old technology of communication.
Right.
Right. So, which is interesting that Bitcoin is solving the Byzantine general problem. Like it's actually a general a problem of warfare communication that Bitcoin is solving, right? That's interesting. That's the whole reason that we've had this, if you want to call it, that's what I'm saying that people think the patriarchy is. Really what they see is they see all these systems that were built at a time when the communication technology was such that the most efficient way to communicate an order from one person to many people was to have a chain of command.
Yeah.
Where the general communicates to his lieutenants, who communicate to the sergeants, who communicate to the enlisted men, and very, very quickly you get it. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. In the level of detail that they need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So at each level, something falls off.
Yeah.
Right. Some detail leaves off because it's not needed. So you give the whole package, then it gets diluted, then it gets diluted, then it gets diluted down. And that has its pros and its cons, but it's been very effective in terms of building the world to the place that it is. Okay, but now we're in a situation where, no, actually, a general could, if the simulation was out there to be like, okay, this is where literally every single infantryman needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Those simultaneously, those orders could be sent at this moment to every single one of them, personalized.
Mm-hmm.
That's the place that we're in. And so we don't need top-down hierarchical communication. We can have one-to-one or one-to-many. We can have that direct feedback link.
Yep.
That it's like this infantryman is like, okay, done. And then the general actually knows. Like, you need one person. You don't need this whole chain of command. And what that also does is, as you say, that level of specificity at each level means that you have specialization, right? So like that system of hierarchical control and hierarchical organization, like it's great for specialization because you deliver the message down this way, and this is the message for artillery, and this is the message for infantry, and this is the message for cavalry, and this is the message for the Air Force, and this is the message for the Navy. Whereas in a consensus-based, you would rather have generalists because you would rather just shoot all the messages out, and whoever's best at infantry does the infantry thing, and whoever's best at any given moment, you could be doing any given thing. And so I think that we are moving into these new models in many different ways. I don't know that the NPC is altogether the NPC is meant to be negative, I think,
or meant to point out a thing that should not be, perhaps. I don't know.
Well, the question is, should not be, right? Because it's happening. It must be efficient. It must be an evolutionary adaptation.
Sure,
in
because
some way.
Thinking is hard, and having to do it for yourself takes a lot of energy and effort, and you could have your preconceptions blown away if you read the wrong thing or change your mind on something. And so what people seek the comfort of their preconceptions and their biases, and it's very comfortable to live within your biases. There was that what was it? It was a prison movie from back in the day, and it was American History X. Mm-hmm. And so guy's a racist, goes to prison, and in there meets a black guy, and they become friends. And he's like, what? I just became friends with a black guy.
Right.
And it's a really good story that illustrates how people, if they're willing to put the effort in, they can change their mind about some, very fundamental things that have been with them their entire life, but they may have been wrong about the entire time. What I think this does is it really points out the intellectual laziness that's out there in society today.
See, I'm not altogether sure that that's it, right? So like I look back and if I look back to a time, okay, let me start over. I think that for as long as we can kind of remember as a culture, there has been a high value placed upon finding new knowledge or an exploratory nature, right? That there was this huge value in, particularly as Americans, right? Going into undiscovered territory, finding what was there. I mean, that's the story in the Westerns. That's, this going out expedition, new businesses, new ideas, all of this. But I feel like some of that was because if you didn't do that, no new ideas were going to come your way. So you imagine you're like a farmer in Missouri in some small town, and it's like 1910. If you don't go to the big city and go and try to find your fortune, no new ideas are going to come your way whatsoever. You will have no access to them, right? There's not going to be books that appear. There's not going to be new concepts. There's not going to be new people. There's not going to be new thoughts. It's going to be the same people day in and day out. Mm-hmm. So those people who went out would be rewarded. They would go out, and that was the story of a lot of the people that came to America in the first place, right? Like they were immigrants. But I mean, even if you go back to like even Disney stories, right? So like Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, all of these stories are even the more recent ones like Moana. Like if you go to all of these things about these, particularly the Disney princesses, I guess they're always princesses in the Disney movies.
That's very sexist.
Aren't they always princesses? Like, is there Aladdin? Aladdin would be the only like hero. He wasn't even a prince, but they still had the Princess Jasmine, right? But in all of those stories, what's happening with all of those princesses is they're going out into the unknown. It's the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. So we've got the hero's journey. You're going out into the unknown, and one of the reasons you go out into the unknown is because nothing new is going to come your way. It's like the Shire.
Sure.
It's Bilbo and Frodo. They're in the Shire. The idea of the Shire is nothing's going to come your way. I think that what's happening now, though, is that we're moving into this new sort of phase in our culture because that's not true anymore.
No.
If you're a person living in Joplin, Missouri, mm-hmm. you're going to have as much coming your way on a daily basis and as much access to new ideas and new concepts as someone in New York, LA, Chicago,
absolutely,
Tokyo, you name it.
Yep.
There's that line has been blurred, but I think that's why I think now what you've got is people being like, it's too much. Mm-hmm. I don't have the skill to parse all of this.
Total overload.
I can't parse the truth. And that was what the whole fake news thing was. Yep. And all of this. I think there's a neuroticism where people are like, I don't have the skills to figure out if this is true or not.
Yeah.
So I need to like grab onto, and I need to basically put myself into a metaphorical, old school, ideological. So people are getting more ideologically possessed to protect themselves from all the new stimuli.
Absolutely. And it goes back to, the faults in logic that everybody has. Everybody succumbs to these errors in their thinking, right? And deference to authority is one of the biggest. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, well, Stephen Hawking said this. Oh, Stephen Hawking said that. Right. Wow, right. He must be right. He's smart. Or if your chosen political leader of your party, whatever, says something, well, that must be correct, regardless of the circumstances, right? So if you take the words, and these are hilarious videos. If you go out and watch, I think Jimmy Kimmel does it quite a bit during around election season. He'll actually go out on the street, do the man in the street mm-hmm. interviews, and he will give talking points from the opposite candidate.
Other side, yep.
Yeah, and people will agree with it.
Yep.
It's like,
I've seen this. Yes.
So Hillary says she wants to cut your taxes and make sure that people have rights to their arms, make sure they can carry their guns. And people are like, oh yeah, Hillary's right, and mm-hmm. I'm just like, what? They're not even thinking, there's a total disconnect.
I've seen one where I think Mark Dice went and he was like saying that some Democrat somewhere, maybe it was Hillary Clinton, and then he said, oh, she said this, tell me if you agree with it. And it's like a line out of Hitler's Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I totally, that's right. That's absolutely right.
Yep.
I mean, because what it is, people don't, being wrong is too risky. Like being wrong yourself in front of others is too risky.
Yeah. So you're on camera. there's all this pressure and you're nervous and, somebody's asking you a question and you have no idea what the answer is. And instead of saying, I don't know, people are afraid. They're afraid to say that. And they're afraid to, show their vulnerability at all.
And that's, that repeats itself online. So that's a very good explanation for what is the motivation for virtue signaling. It may not be so much carrot. Like, it may not be so much that this person is doing this to get the accolades from other people. It may be more that this person is doing this to not get shunned.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Because it's like, well, why didn't you say anything about that? Why didn't you, do you not support that? Do you not support believe all women? Like, what do you, why did you not say that? And then it's like, maybe I should just, it's just easier. Believe all women.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easier and it's less controversial. You get less heat from your friends. It's one of those things where, I don't know if you've heard this story. It's an old story, but it is told in classrooms to, and it's another one of these thinking biases. Apparently a true story, I'm not recalling the entire thing, but apparently a true story where a woman was being physically assaulted. And everybody thought somebody else was going to help.
Oh, yes. This is in New York.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and apparently this is not the only time this has happened. This has happened.
But this one was like crazy. And she ended up getting killed.
Yeah. And like, many, many people witnessed this happening.
I think it was 24 people.
And nobody did anything.
Nobody did anything.
Because everybody assumed somebody else would. And, so when you have the kind of people who are unwilling to take action, they're unwilling to put themselves out there. They're unwilling to have dissent with the people around them, and they suffer from this bias of, deference to authority. You put all that together, and you end up with people who literally are NPCs. They cannot and will not think for themselves or disagree with the lines that they're being given.
See, and so I was looking at this NPC guy, and I tweeted out, I said, the NPC is gray because he spent his whole life locked in Plato's cave. because I do see that this is very much what Plato was talking about, that if you have locked yourself into one particular perspective, and so therefore you are constructing your entire world from, you've been told to look in a specific direction. That's where everybody that is important to you, that can give you social validation, is looking. So let me be sure to look there, to just be sure that I can relate to those people. It's interesting when you come from outside of a culture and you come into it, like you can see it. When you're inside of it, you can't see it. Right. So, and I've had a few of these, but most recently, what's interesting to me is coming here to New England, where obviously Boston sports is like, it's like religion. So
Belichick did nothing wrong.
Right. And so being here in, in Nashua, like right nestled up on the border of Massachusetts, and going to a pretty good gym. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of Massachusetts plates that come in, and New Hampshire, people are fans of the same. It's only 30 miles to Boston, so.
And we really don't have any other sports.
No. And so walking into, it's funny because, every morning I walk into the gym. And walk through the locker room, and then afterwards as well. And every single time, that's the way that people, oh yeah, was watching the Red Sox last night. Oh, this, and it's just like, wow, because if you are in New England, and if you come across somebody who you hear them talk and they've got a New England accent, you're pretty much good as a man to, if you want to start talking about the Red Sox or the Celtics or the Bruins or the Patriots, depending on what season it is, you're good.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you've struck up. You've got a instant rapport because everybody's looking in a certain direction. Because they know I know for a fact because I had some friends from Rhode Island who moved out to LA and they would still watch every Red Sox game. And I think that some of that is because if you weren't watching the Red Sox last night and I go to talk and you were like, yeah, I'm not really a Red Sox fan, be like, oh my, what did you say? Like, what did you just say? And
well, it's like in nerd culture, you know.
Sure.
It's like, oh, did you see the episode of Battlestar Galactica last night? No, I was out at a bar. What? No nerd's ever going to say that. Come on.
Like, what? What are you talking about? How did you? What?
It's crazy.
What?
Yeah.
And so when you moved, and I think that that was one thing about Trump. One thing that he did was he united a broad segment of the population who really prided themselves on being, let's say cultured, I guess it's an intelligence thing. It's it's progressive, right? It's the idea that like, no, there was those old ways of doing things, you know, so backwards and everything. I'm a forward-looking individual. I read books. I know the coolest things that are going on. He united all of that.
Yeah. And honest to God, he did it on nothing other than the force of his own personality. Yeah. His speeches contain nothing of substance whatsoever.
Zero.
I would have loved to have seen...
Huge.
It's huge. Bigly.
The best people. We have the best... Absolute. Isn't he the best? You're the best. You're the best. You're absolutely the best. Nobody better. You've never seen a better economy than the economy. There's never been a better economy.
And people lose their minds. They're like, yay!
And it's like,
crazy.
Well, actually, no, that's not true, but okay.
Whatever. I would have loved to have seen the Lincoln-style debate between him and like Newt Gingrich. Could you imagine that? Newt Gingrich would have like demolished him.
But see, I don't think so, because I think that Donald Trump knows exactly how to talk to the American people.
Yeah, it's all about personality. It is 100% about personality.
He doesn't, because the thing that Donald Trump doesn't do, and I think this is why people love him, is he does not speak above you.
No, he can't.
Well, see, I don't know whether he can or not, but I know that in public he doesn't. And that's a talent. That's a real talent. To know who your audience is and what it is you need to sell to them and to speak to them at their level is... Did you
happen to watch the entire video of Kanye's meeting with the president?
I did, and it's crazy.
It's awesome. Because Kanye is sitting there spouting off about alternate universes and the meaning of life, and Donald Trump says, I love this guy. Isn't this guy great? It's a great guy. I'm like, dude, where's your alternate universes? Where's your meaning of life? Where's your purpose?
No, that's Kanye's job.
That's Kanye's job. And all Donald's doing is sitting there going, I love this guy. Isn't this guy great? He's great. That's it.
Kanye said motherfucker.
Yeah.
In the Oval Office. I was like...
More than once.
I was like, wow. And Donald Trump just smiled. He just smiled.
Ain't nobody going to tell you what to do.
Well, it's... This is why I think we've reached a very interesting time, is that the manipulation... It's so hard to be, people value like, oh, I'm going to be an independent thinker. But we've reached a time when you can't be that sort of standout individual just by saying, oh, I've read this and you haven't. Right. Or I know this and you don't. There was a thing like with hipsters. That was kind of the whole thing with hipsters was like...
You've probably never heard of it.
You've never heard of this band? Like the whole thing was that if someone was like, "What's your favorite band?" you would have to say a band that no one had ever heard of. Same thing. Well, that's how the craft beers grew up, right? That's how the whole craft beer thing happened, was because it was like, well, what's your favorite beer? And then you would say some beer and be like, oh yeah, it's like a small craft brewery out of, Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's a squat. It's an anarchist squat, and they just like ferment it in the basement or something. Like
they make 1 pint of beer a
right,
year.
1 pint of beer, and I have it, and that became that became a joke and a parody. But see, that for a long time was how you were a sort of Renaissance man, or how you were the coolest individual. Even if you look at those most interesting man sort of, those ads that they had, they would have the flashbacks. They're great. But they would have the flashbacks to him doing all of these different things. And there was a time when if you were someone who had done all of those things, it was very hard to do. But now, like our buddy Nick Hawk, who, his bucket list of things to do, like one of them was for a long time swim with great white sharks.
Wow.
Right? To go and they don't let you out of the cage, but to go into the cage. But here's the thing. I could Google right now, swim with great white sharks, and there is somebody offering that service right now. I can pay for it right now, book my ticket, and go. There's no barrier to entry except money.
Right. Exactly.
And so that makes it, well, then it's not cool anymore. Mm-hmm. It's not cool. If there's no barrier to entry except money, it's okay. You're not cool for having done it. You just are doing conspicuous consumption at this point.
Right.
And so now we've reached that point to where people trying to be individuals, the question is like, what do you do to be? I mean, I think we are exploring those answers, right? Because I think it's about create. You have to create. It can no longer be from consumption.
You have to create. In my mind, I have to create. And this is the thing. I've spent 30 years in corporate IT. I'm done. I got to create, and it's like, that the creative part of me, I've always kind of had on the side as a hobby. I've done a few things, music and, art and things like that, but it was never a full-time passion. And over the next few years, I want to make it my full-time gig. I want it to be my life. I want my life to be based around the creative process in all kinds of different medium. And that, I think, from a human standpoint, from a non-NPC standpoint, that is kind of the spark of life. Like, I honestly, I've had this thought for many years. I look at some of these executives from these big companies, and they have all the money you could ever want, no barriers to entry for anything they'd want to do.
Yep.
But what gets them up in the morning and excited? And for a lot of them, I don't have any idea. Like, some of them, I get it. Like Steve Ballmer, I got him. He just wanted to beat everybody.
Right.
It was like, dominate. Yep. That was his whole purpose in life. Yep. And then he went on and owned a sports team and where you can dominate.
Yeah, it's competition.
Yeah. It's like, hey,
be better than somebody else.
Yeah, and if you're wired that way and all your like internal, mechanisms around your value are based on how badly you beat somebody else, great. I don't want any part of that, but whatever. I'm not going to judge somebody else's
The problem
life.
with that is that it is actually impossible for you to grow spiritually if that's it. Yeah. Because there's no lasting change so you win this battle.
Then what?
Then you have to go on to the next. Yeah. Like you're stuck in Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
Where you're chasing the dragon.
Yep.
Right. And it's never as good.
No.
It's like you need these bigger and bigger wins, which means you need bigger and bigger conflict.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? You always have to be creating bigger and bigger conflict. Whereas, I guess if I'm competing, I would think I'm competing with my old self to be more awake and more aware. But I think that the only way that you can do that is to manifest things into the world.
Right.
Like to take things from out of the ether that do not exist and then manifest them into the world. Mm-hmm. Now, in many ways, you're chasing the dragon with that as well. But every time you do it, you actually alter the world.
Yeah, you're bringing something new. You're bringing, like, I'm not even, see, this is what is tripping me up. Can I say women? Do I need to say females?
No,
do I need to say
you can say anything you want on this
persons with uteri? I mean, how do I refer?
Not all women have uteri. Not all women have uteri.
So
I think you can say whatever you want to say.
Those who give birth to live offspring.
Fair enough. Okay, that's actually very, very good.
They have that experience. A lot, not everyone, but the ones that do have that experience of bringing new life into the world. They've made the world different. They've changed the world many times for the better. That's great. Men typically don't get to do that unless they are artists or musicians or they create something, they build furniture or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, because women get to gestate and grow the thing, and then so they have work to do. They have to keep themselves healthy. They have to take care of this situation. They have to, so there's an actual, men, we have to take care of them while they're going through that, but it's a very different, it's not as intimate. It's not as personal. And then even afterwards,
the feeding and the care.
The baby is still very much a part of them.
Yes.
Right? It has to be. While those last stages of development happen. And I think you're absolutely right that it's for men, in order to have that level of fulfillment, we have to create something. But our culture has said, oh, no. Consumption is fine.
But it's not. And that's what drives me crazy. It is not fulfilling. The constant urge to go out and buy more things. And I've had this, in my life where
me too.
It's like, man, I can get on Amazon and I can browse for hours and I'm just like, I need that and I need that. Do I really? No, I don't need any of that shit. It's like, if there's a purpose to it, if there's a use for it, okay, fine, get it.
Right.
But if it is just browsing for the sake of browsing or shopping for the sake of shopping where you're getting the dopamine hit, that's not useful and that is not beneficial as a person, right? It's not going to help your soul grow in the slightest. So we are surrounded by this society of rampant consumerism and materialism. And these are people with empty souls trying to fill in the holes any way that they can. And they're not finding satisfaction. They're not finding fulfillment in external sources because fulfillment really needs to come from the inside. Fulfillment's got to come from inside your creative passion.
I think it's very daunting to look around the world and say, I'm going to create something, because then you're like, what could I possibly create in this world where there's, like you say, where I could just go on Amazon, oh my God, everything's already been created. Like, how can I create something new? I think that where a lot of people go wrong is that I think you have to, what it's all about is like really in terms of the creation is, I've always looked at it as I'm a conduit. I'm not actually creating anything. I'm just manifesting some idea that appeared to me because I had tuned my being to the right place.
Yeah.
And I know that you're experiencing that as well, that like when you got your being tuned to the right place, what you needed to do in terms of your manifestation, it becomes like obvious, like immediately.
Yeah. It is weird how that works out. And sometimes it doesn't occur to you right away. Sometimes it takes a while. Even though I've had this like, wow, I really need to do something that is more creative and have a better creative outlet and maybe make a living off of it. That would be amazing. But really, solidifying what that would be, didn't come into focus really until a couple of days ago.
Right.
And even though I've still got a lot of ideas of things that I want to do in addition, my main primary focus shifted completely from where I thought it was going to be to this whole new thing that's not really new, and it builds on skills that I've been developing for the past 30 years. And now I get to apply those exact same skills in a whole new way, and I'm going, oh my God, I've been training my whole life for this.
See, that has been what it always has been for me as well. With each new thing, if it's genuine, I think it always feels like, oh, I was training my whole life for this, and I didn't know that this was what I was training for. But I think it's also that when your head is in the right place, what happens is, again, it's like you're tuned in to a particular frequency.
Yeah.
Because of all the things that you've done. And it's almost like when you're tuned into a particular frequency, you can't help but that the right message of what it is that you're supposed to be doing, of course it's going to be based on the skills and the knowledge that you have, because that's where your perspective is at. That's where your antenna is tuned to, and it just comes from somewhere.
Right.
Like, I don't know exactly where it comes from. Doing the ayahuasca thing, and I know that that's going to be something in the next coming year that I'm sure we're going to talk about it on the show.
Oh, we're going to have some amazing shows after that.
That is something that I very much realized in that process, is that it's not, there's a world of a dimension of possibilities, and you only get to reach into the section that you're prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not just going to get it's not going to be some sort of magical situation where you're all of a sudden going to have some superpowers that, but what you're going to realize is that the things that you do know and that your life experience has led you to a certain place, and you're perfectly equipped.
Right.
And that's the NPC. When you get into the mode of the NPC, or you choose to wear the NPC mask, you start cutting yourself off from all those things.
I don't know that people have the choice to wear the NPC mask. I think they just are. You know what I mean? If they knew they were wearing a mask, they would know better than to wear it. I think it really is an involuntary. They have no idea. They're playing a role. They're playing a role for the people who are actually playing the game, but they don't know that.
See, this is why I love the NPC meme. And so this is what I find so interesting about the response to the NPC meme. So there's two responses to have to this meme when it hits you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when the meme is directed at you, there's two responses to have. And I've seen the one response. I've been sort of like tweeting relating to this, trying to see if I could elicit the other response. So I had a tweet that I said, if you think the NPC meme is about the left, you're an NPC. If you think that the NPC meme is about the right, you're an NPC.
Yeah.
If you think that the NPC meme is about someone else and not you, you're an NPC.
Yeah.
Because we're all NPCs. This is what we have to... We're all NPCs in one way or another.
Sure.
In other words, this is what... Transcending the NPC is waking up. It's moving into consciousness. Mm-hmm. I think that that's what every spiritual teacher has said, is that it's like transcending your programming, because we've all been programmed in one way or another.
Absolutely.
We all have thoughts that are not our own and that are unexamined.
Yes.
Right. The unexamined life. The unexamined life is not worth living.
Right. And honestly, how many people actually examine their lives?
This is my point.
Yeah.
So I think that the NPC meme gives this great opportunity to where here somebody does this NPC meme. They've got this little robot, and this robot says some talking point. And you see this, and you recognize, I've said that talking point.
Mm-hmm.
My friends say that talking point. I say that talking point. This person who doesn't say that talking point sees me as a robot saying this talking point. It hits you hard enough that there's some truth to it. The response has been, this meme is dehumanizing because it's referencing me.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is this, why do you think it's referencing you? You don't look like that. It didn't have your name on it. The only thing it had was a little NPC character who's completely nondescript. Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing about it. Doesn't even look like a real person. It's just a little what a person would be if a 3-year-old drew it. and then a thought bubble, or it's saying something, but it's saying something that you're saying. Why do you think this is in reference to you?
Couple of reasons. One, because my tribe thinks this way, and therefore you're insulting my tribe. The other part, and this is a paradox of the entire world can now communicate instantaneously with the entire world. And the paradox is that everybody thinks they're talking to you personally.
Right. Or everybody thinks that someone else is talking to them
Correct.
personally. Right.
Yeah. One-on-one communication. And it really isn't. Mm-hmm. People have this, like if you were to go back, 40, 50 years ago, mm-hmm. and you were to ask somebody, what's special about you? They'd be like, nothing. I'm just a kid.
Right, nothing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just regular Joe.
Yep.
And that was fine.
It's fine to be a regular Joe, yeah.
Today, if you say, what's special about you? Well, I have this, and I have this, and I have this, and and they've got a whole speech.
Right.
It's like, really? Because, as, the evil little dude in Incredibles said, when everybody's special, nobody is.
Well, this is the whole kind of intersectionality thing, is that that's an interesting point that you're making there, because what a lot of people are doing in terms of what makes you special is they're trying to get granular down into the sort of, particularly into their sort of like, what are these? Either, I would say accidents. They're accidental properties.
Sure.
Right? So it might be that they are a particular ethnic minority, an immigrant, they speak another language as a first language.
They're tall, they're short.
They're tall, short, this.
Whatever.
But it becomes the combination of all of those things.
Right.
So it's like, well, I'm a black, female, immigrant, raised in poverty, first person to go to college in my family, transsexual, this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like all these things. Mm-hmm. And then if you were any one of them by themselves, you wouldn't be unique. But but what you try to do is you try to make it so granular that when you add up all of those things, then there's a new dimension created where you're like, okay, I'm the only person that can check each of these things. So it's the combination of things, mm-hmm. rather than, oh, yeah, I did X.
Right.
Or I manifested something into the world
mm-hmm.
that had never been here before, that no one else had ever done. I manifested it into the world, and boom, here it is.
I own a Ferrari.
Yeah, well, I think that is the outgrowth of the consumer culture, because the consumer culture is really all about what is the combination of things that you own.
Yeah, and how are they special or unique or,
But they're not. They're mass produced.
Right.
And hey, guess what? So are women. Women are mass produced. So are black people. Mass produced. Even transsexuals are mass produced. Even, it doesn't matter what dimension you go on. Immigrants are mass produced. It doesn't matter what dimension you're on. They're all mass produced. Mm-hmm. If you want to be an individual, the individual has to be not those things. The individual has to be the creative spark. That's where the individual has to come from. And so that's what happened with the NPC was that people saw, oh, they're talking about me. This NPC meme is saying my catchphrase, is saying this talking point that I have.
Yep.
And now the response was, well, then that's dehumanizing. What you're doing with this meme is you are calling me a robot. You are taking away my humanity.
My individuality.
Well, not even individual, because it's not that it's de-individualizing me.
It's dehumanizing.
They're saying it's dehumanizing, right? But there's a lot of humans on the planet. Like, that's not that's a class of thing, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, this is dehumanizing me, as opposed to saying, oh, wait a minute. Is that really my thought? Do I really believe that? If so, why? Let me examine that for a minute, because, wow, thank you for bringing that to my attention, that I didn't even know I was thinking that, and I wonder what else I don't think. And there you're starting to loose the chains from Plato's cave. You're starting to walk out into the sunlight, which, as Plato describes it, is painful. If you've been living underground this whole time, stepping into that sunlight is going to hurt your eyes.
So the Plato's cave analogy, I love that, because I took it when you mentioned that. Sparks went off in my head, like often happens when you tell me things. I'm like,
appreciate it. Yeah, same. It's ditto, same.
It's so cool. So I was thinking, when you were talking about the gray color,
Yes.
I'm like, well, maybe it's because the NPC is actually the shadow on the wall.
Ooh.
Because the real people are standing. So there's the fire, there's the real people,
Yes.
and then the wall cave, or
Right.
the cave of the wall.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I'm saying? And
The wall of the cave.
yes, and they're seeing the shadows,
Yes,
right? But the
yes,
shadows
yes.
aren't real.
Yes.
They're just projections.
Yeah, there are people walking by with like little shapes, that are, the fire is flickering, and it's kind of like a TV, you know.
So then these NPCs, to me, I'm like, well, maybe they're just the shadows. They're the personification of the shadows in Plato's cave.
Well, yes, because when you are strapped to the wall and all you can see are the shadows, of course you would believe yourself to be a shadow as well, because that's all that's there.
That's all that's there. That's all you know.
I think that we see that in terms of the desire to both venerate and imitate reality stars.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I mean, look, if we're talking about Kanye West in Donald Trump's Oval Office, the thing that was missed in all of that nobody mentioned was like, can we just say the term reality TV? Can somebody just mention that? Can somebody just mention the fact that what you really had in this moment was the producer and star of The Apprentice and a Kardashian
Yeah.
having a thing together?
Yeah.
Like, you might say that it was great. Why should Kanye even be in there? And he's insane, and he's doing all this, and Orange Man bad, and Donald Trump. And it's like, yo, but the ratings though.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. It was a photo op.
But everybody watches those fucking shows.
Do you see how many cameras are in there? I mean, there were times in the video I could barely hear what they were saying.
Because it click, 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 click,
Yeah,
click, click.
the shutters just going and going and going and going. And I'm like, okay, you took a picture, knock it off.
Yep.
What are you doing? That is all it was. It was a huge photo op.
No, it was reality TV.
Yeah.
It was two people who are part of reality TV dynasties doing reality TV.
Yep.
Doing reality TV that they didn't have to pay to have the cameras there.
No. And more coverage than, the ratings on that segment are probably way higher than any of the shows.
Everybody was talking about it. They were streaming it live.
Yeah.
They were streaming it live. And that's what, it's funny that people can't step back for that. They'll either be enraged or they'll think whatever they want to think about it, but they don't step back and be like, oh, that was reality TV. Wait a minute. Like, because wouldn't you think that if you had, Triple H and The Rock, that someone might say professional wrestling, if you had the two of them doing their thing as their characters posturing in a setting, wouldn't everybody be like, oh, professional wrestling?
Yep.
Oh, they were just doing a professional wrestling thing. The word reality TV was not said.
No.
In any press coverage about that, in anything about it. And when you reach that point, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're fucked, Because if you reached the point where you had Triple H and The Rock doing that same, instead of Donald Trump and Kanye, it was The Rock and Triple H, and no one said wrestling, you're done.
Yeah.
You're under the spell.
Well, when The Rock runs for president,
That's which he will.
in a few years,
Yes.
And Triple H could be his vice president.
There you go. Sure, why not?
And these guys are going to be having debates, giving speeches.
Sure, why not?
And nobody's going to say wrestling because we've already gotten past that. I mean, Donald Trump in office means that we don't have to deal with that nastiness anymore. People can just run on their own merits.
That's it. That said to me, it said everything to me. Because all I saw, but then again, I was a star of a reality TV show, so I guess I look at it differently. I'm not under the spell.
You're jaded. You've seen behind the curtain.
I've been behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Right? I've been one of the people pulling the strings.
You know what the Great Oz actually looks like.
I do, and what I see is there's a lot of reality TV. Before Trump ran, and I've told people this many times, I forget who I was talking to, but I said to them, this was before Trump had even announced that he was going to run. It was probably a year before when I really, really realized what reality TV was. And when I produced this web series for this DJ duo, Caked Up, where it's like, it was the 50th anniversary. I want to do a thing, 50th anniversary of Hard Day's Night, the Beatles.
Okay, cool.
Which is, if you go back and watch it, it's basically like, it's the first reality TV.
Wow.
And that was how you got, John is this one and Ringo is this one. Like, that was what created
and that was before the Monkees TV show?
The Monkees was based upon so you watch Hard Day's Night and like it's about them trying to get to a show. Mm-hmm. You know, they're traveling on this train, but like at the beginning, it's them running away from the fans. But you get the whole, it's this whole narrative that is told. They didn't think that it wasn't about the movie. It was about, so they made this album, Hard Day's Night, and then these producers who were doing this very experimental type of cinema at the time. It's an interesting story and a great watch, by the way. If you look at it through the vein of this is the first reality TV ever done. But it's like, followed them around with more handheld cameras. Mm-hmm. They did this whole thing. They had this whole narrative where they really played out their particular characters, right? They had these little vignettes where they would do various different things, and that's how their characters were known. And so basically they released the album, and then they released this film. They released it in the States. People went to go and see it, and then because of the film, when they showed up to the States, all these teenage girls were wild for them.
Oh yeah.
And that was how you got the first boy band. That it was from them creating these characters in this movie format. Hard Day's Night, it's to watch it and be like, whoa, this had never been done, because it's done constantly now.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
It's just part of the promotional package.
You watch 8 Mile, or any of Britney Spears had one. You watch, like, this is Get Rich or Die Trying, 50 Cent. Like, these are all just copies of that, where it's like, no, we're going to tell this person's story. They're going to play themselves.
Yep.
Ali did one.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to play themselves in their own story. That was Hard Day's Night. That was the first time it was ever done. So I wanted to do 50th anniversary, which I did. So we did this web series with this DJ duo, Caked Up, who was like blowing up at the time, and we did basically the same situation. And after I was done with that, I remember being on this phone call, and I was like, give me $4 million and a slot on a national network, and I'll give you your next president. And this was before Trump ran.
Wow.
Because it's that easy. Like, when you know the formula, when you know what to do, it's that easy, because the human brain can't tell the difference between when you get sucked in.
Yeah.
And when it's that's the other thing, is when it's the real person playing their life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's the thing about when people say, well, what is 50 Cent's history? What is Eminem's history?
Dude got shot like 9 times or something.
But people are seeing the dramatized. When someone, what is Eminem's biography? Is the movie 8 Mile?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not how it happened. But see, you're seeing the brain can't differentiate. Like,
No.
I saw Eminem do XYZ, the guy Eminem do XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
That's his biography.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he was replaying in a highly dramatized version,
Right.
with a lot of things added and a lot of things taken away and things that never happened. Oh no, those things happen now because you put them in a movie.
Right. Yeah, and people look at other people's lives as their real life, but it's a highlight reel. It is actually just small segments of dramatization, which does not actually represent their real life,
Right.
at all. My daughter just experienced this, being invited to be a guest on a reality show.
There you go.
And she was actually shocked to find that when the camera crew showed up, it wasn't just one guy with a camera and then the star of the reality show. Even though this is not like a major network, it's outdoor channel, which is not bad. I mean, that's a big channel, but it's not HBO. It's not, CBS.
It was probably 2 cameras, a producer or 2 PA.
She said it was like 12 people.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that's right.
Wow, 12 people and the 2 other stars of the show. And so they come in, they do their thing. But all of it from the very first moment all the way through the end was completely 100% scripted and fake.
Yeah,
it was,
of course.
All the shots were set up. There was no genuine experience, even though I'm sure when it airs, it is going to look like it was spontaneous. And, she's like, they would have multiple takes of just walking. Like they would walk and then the director would be like, okay, do it again. And they would walk again. They're like, okay, do it again. And
that's actually the mark of an untalented crew.
Mm.
So that's like the mark of a B-level crew. Well, or a crew that hasn't worked with the talent very much. Because our crew, that happened maybe in the first season a little bit with our crew. But no, a really good crew, what they do is so there's 2 ways of approaching it. And maybe it's not that they're a bad crew, but it's like it's a directorial style as well, production style as well. That it's like, and this is actually an important point because this relates to the Trump and Kanye thing. And it relates to The Apprentice and Kardashians because those are 2 very well done, well produced, and they're produced in the same way, the same directorial style as Gigolos.
Huge budget. Huge
budget. But the reason why the budget's so big is because you get the top people. And so basically what it is that on my show, on Kardashians, on The Apprentice, when the talent shows up, the crew has been there for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Or more. Everything's set. They've walked out. They've basically mapped out in space all of the places that you're allowed to go.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And they know if you go to a particular place, I'm going over here, you're going over there, you're going over there. If they move here, we move here. If they move there, we move there. If they move there, we move there. And then they just tell you, okay, you can go anywhere and do whatever you want, except you need to stay over here and over here. Don't go over here, but stay within this bubble.
Yep.
If you want to go over and talk at this table, you can talk at this table. If you want to go over here, you're welcome to go over here.
Yep.
Do that. And then they're like, okay, and at some point, talk about this. At some point, talk about this. And maybe maximum, if you're just doing something and it's just going long, they might be like, if they need you to do yoga or whatever, they'll be like, okay, that's great. We got enough of you guys just shooting the shit. Let's do some yoga. Do it over, and they'll have the mat set up in the place that it's supposed to be. And they will already know you're going to shoot it like this, then like this, then like this, then like this. that makes it flow a lot better.
Sure, on
And
camera.
no multiple takes.
Right, on camera, it makes it
Right.
flow. And that was one of the things when they actually, so my daughter actually does these yoga hikes, right? So she takes people up in the mountains and they do yoga on top of a mountain. It's very cool.
That's awesome.
And so this reality show got a hold of her and we're like, oh, we would love to have the star of our show come on and actually do one of these hikes. And she's like, oh my God, that's great. Yeah, send her up. So they show up. It's this huge crew. And literally it is... they were like an hour late, apparently. My daughter had been there waiting on them.
That's
So then they show up, and then it is a flurry of activity, right? Everybody's trying to get set up. Everybody's, doing their thing. And then they start running through the shots. I mean, my daughter had no idea. She'd never been on television before, so she had no idea how it worked. And so they already had prepared a list of shots that they wanted to capture so that they could present it on the show. And it wasn't about, and this I think was the most eye-opening part, it wasn't about the star having the experience. It was about how is this going to look on the show?
Right.
Because my daughter was actually, she called me afterwards and she was upset because she was like, we never actually got to do yoga.
Right.
Like they had us like do a couple of poses and then close it out.
Yeah, that's all they need.
And the director actually said to her, okay, say namaste and then we'll be done. And so she did. And she's like, I don't know. That's not a thing that I do. Like, they're wanting me to do these things that I don't actually do for my students. And I'm like, honey, it's okay. I'm sure it's going to look great on the show.
Oh, it'll look fantastic. Believe me, it'll be great marketing for her.
Yeah. And I'm just like, it wasn't real. Right. And that's the thing. And that was the part that she was upset about because she was looking forward to giving this person the actual experience that she gives to all of her customers, but she wasn't able to because they were making this reality show episode and it was about getting a flavor of it without actually having the experience.
So this is the interesting thing about the sort of civilian thrown into the mix of reality TV and where it's different when we're talking about Donald Trump and Kanye.
Yeah.
And or any of the Kardashians is that, or even us gigolos, over that, what happens over time as you do these shows is that, and it's really for efficiency. It's really a more efficient way of doing things is that you learn what character you need to be in order for everybody to get the best out of you, right? So you're on the team. You're on the team with the sound guy and the producer and the director and everybody wants to, and the camera people, and everybody wants to get the best shot, the best coverage, and all of this in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah.
And your job, how you become a team player is you play the character that is the most compelling in the way that allows the most coverage. And that's what you saw happening between Trump and Kanye.
Yeah.
Is you saw them playing their reality TV characters.
Here's the interesting thing, though, about Kanye is that you made a comment earlier, like, people think he's crazy. The way he came off to me is somebody who's waking up.
Oh, he's very much wake. When he started talking about the hero's journey, I was like,
yeah.
Oh, he's the problem that he has is exactly what we talked about last week, is that he's not hungry.
He's not hungry, and he is inundated with information that he's
too much.
He can't process it all. Nobody could process that much information. It's hitting him from all sides. And, in a couple of years, I'm sure he's going to sound a lot more sane and he'll have his thoughts together.
I don't think so.
But
I think that he's going to get less and less sane.
Because his crew will protect him.
Yeah, he has sycophants around him. Yeah. And he has people who, it's like the emperor's new clothes.
Yep.
where he gets crazier and crazier. And these are people who what he needs is a mentor, but it's going to be very hard for him to have a mentor because of how accomplished he is, and he's not young anymore.
No.
And so he's in his 40s. He's maybe a couple years older than me, so he's probably 42, 43. It's going to be very hard for him to find a mentor who's going to be on his level and who's going to be able to talk to him about the things that it seems that he's clearly interested in. Because what I think he's trying to do is he's trying to parse out his lived experience.
Yeah.
So he's had a charmed and blessed life.
Yes.
He has had an incredible success as an artist. He's married to probably the most famous woman on earth.
Yeah.
He's at the top. He's at the top. Like, I don't know.
He won the game of life.
He won the game of life. He's he's saying motherfucker in the Oval Office and talking crazy and having the President of the United States say, I love this guy.
Not only that,
the crazier he talks.
He stood up. Okay, imagine this.
He went and gave the president a hug.
Yeah. Now, okay. My comment on that is a black guy, and not to be racist about this.
Nope, but keep going.
But
it's
think
important.
about this.
It is important to mention race.
This is a societal moment.
Of course it is.
A black guy known for rap, and rap is the music of the hoodlums, the music of the ghetto, right?
From Chicago.
Stands up unexpectedly, suddenly in the White House and runs towards the president and embraces him.
That's right.
And he isn't shot by the Secret Service.
That's right.
When would that have ever happened before? Ever?
It wouldn't have.
Nobody makes sudden moves around. White people don't make sudden moves around the president. Nobody makes sudden moves. Kanye literally leapt up out of his chair, went over
after speaking like someone who should be committed.
Yes. Well, after speaking like, somebody who would be on our show.
Right. Fair enough.
But think about that dynamic, and which goes to your point that it's a reality show.
It's a reality show.
Yeah.
Trump knows it. Kanye knows it.
I would say the hug was premeditated.
Sure it was. Yeah. Well, what it was that this is a temporary autonomous zone, right? So what's agreed to beforehand is Kanye says to Donald Trump, with around advisors and the whole nine, they're like, okay, we're going to do this thing. Mm-hmm. And Kanye is like, well, how crazy can I get? And Trump is like, do you, Kanye? Like, whatever you want to...
Whatever you want, Kanye, grab her in the pussy if that's what you want to do.
Whatever you want. And he says, can I curse? And Trump's like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
If you want to. I'm not going to, but you can.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, can I wear this MAGA hat? He's like, absolutely, you can wear the hat. Can I give you a hug at some point? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And it's like, okay, boom.
Yeah.
Lights, camera, action.
Yeah.
Let's do the scene.
Yep.
Jim Brown was probably not in on any of that,
no.
which is the reason why. And it's funny because Saturday Night Live even did a little skit where they had, what's the guy? The one from Kenan and Kel. I always forget.
The fat one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know which one is he? Is he Kel or Kenan?
I don't know.
he was playing Jim Brown in the skit.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And the whole thing with the skit is that Jim Brown is like, I don't know what the hell is happening right here. This is crazy, right? Like, and that was the whole gig.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing was... And you do that in reality TV too, right? That's where you have the civilian.
Yeah.
Is that you have to have the foil. So you have the civilian, like there's this crazy shit happening.
Yep.
The way that you make it seem more real is you stick the civilian in the middle.
Or the straight man.
It is the civilian
in the
becomes
comedy act.
The civilian becomes a straight man, right?
Yep.
So like this was very much the case in The Apprentice, especially The Celebrity Apprentice, because they would have these crazy ass celebrities out there, and they would go to like it would be like wedding planning, and they would have like the wedding planning advisor who was there. That's the straight man, and then you've got Dennis Rodman doing something insane, and like all these, right? And so then that's how you get that, and that's what Jim Brown's, because you would be like, why is Jim Brown here?
He was, think about this. Okay, so there is this mental image that I have, and I think a lot of people have this of my generation, of the properly dressed in a suit with a top hat, black man from the early 1900s who was just, I'm doing my business, I'm like taking care of my things. And like the first black senator was like back in the 1800s. And so, before government got involved and decided to ruin things, the black society, black culture was actually doing fine.
It was moving. Actually, what's interesting is that there were more black owned businesses before the end of per capita, before the end of segregation, than there are even today.
Wow,
far less. There are far less now. Because at that time there were black neighborhoods. Every single business, there were businesses in the black neighborhood. There was a tailor. There was a grocer. There was a milkman. There was a carpenters. There was whoever it was, a blacksmith. They were all black.
The American dream was open.
It was open.
Everybody.
Sure.
Before the government got involved.
That's right.
And decided to make stupid shit illegal and legal and all that.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that I am pro-segregation, but what I am saying is that people will find a way.
And they did.
Exactly.
Until they were interfered with. And you and I, neither one are for segregation.
No, of course not.
I feel like, leave people to their own devices and they will find a way.
People will find a way. And that is exactly what was happening back in the day. And if you look at black culture from that time, there were almost no illegitimate births. Like the black... actually, in terms of illegitimate births, there were actually more among white Americans.
Yes, more among whites.
Higher among... it was... You had the destruction of the family.
Total destruction of the family.
Yeah.
So my, impression was that was the role that Jim Brown was playing. He was that old, respectable, solid family black man.
But he was
from back in the day.
Yeah, but he was meant to be the straight man. Like he was.
Correct.
He was meant to be the foil. And the message in all of that, the message in that moment was. The message in that moment was. We are not in the old times anymore.
It was
the culture has moved forward.
The torch has been passed, right?
But the torch has been passed, but not willingly. Because the thing about Jim Brown is that, Jim Brown had been very much an activist in the 70s. And I think, there was this idea of, he was like a Black Power activist, during that time. And it was appropriate for that time. But I think him being there, some of it was like, we don't really need Black Power when you have a black man in the White House saying motherfucker at will and hugging the president.
On camera, because I'm pretty sure the last black guy also said motherfucker in the White House, but it wasn't on camera. So he was just smoking a cigarette saying motherfucker.
Right. Well, let's say so. To be fair, Barack Obama is probably the least black. He's the least black American probably around.
Damn, son.
Let's be fair. Let's just be real.
You are calling him out.
Let's just be real. Let's just be real. I mean, he does have Michelle Obama, his wife, and she is definitely a black American woman from Chicago.
Strong.
There's no doubt. Strong black woman. Very strong. But she's got biceps bigger than mine.
I know.
And
bigger than Nick Hawk.
Yeah, bigger than Nick Hawk. So you know, so you can see why he married her to be able to get the street cred, but.
Oh, that was what it was? I was wondering what that was. So it was for the street cred and so that she could lift the heavy things.
Right, exactly.
Because he can't.
So that she could reach down shit from shelves and open jars.
Michelle, I can't open this jar of peanut butter. Could you open this for me? Yeah, that's what it was.
She broke the jar in half. This fucked up. So... No, but I mean, it's what that was. That was really I think it was a message to, as much as anything, I think Trump was making a statement and a message to Republicans.
Yeah.
A very strong message about this is the direction that I'm going. But I think right now, at least the younger generation, that racial aspect is just fucking gone out of this country. It just really is. Like... If you're especially like mid-30s and under, and you're a racist, you are a fucking throwback.
Oh, big
There's
time, yeah.
just no room for you. If you are a homophobe, you're a fucking throwback. There's no room for you. I mean, dude, Canada, we should probably just drive. I really just want to fucking drive up there now. And we're so close. We're 2-3 hours away. Canada's got completely legal weed now.
Yeah.
A whole country. A whole fucking country.
Yeah.
And so we've moved into another time.
Mm-hmm.
We've moved into a whole other paradigm. We got to leave all that old shit behind.
Yeah.
And Trump, he is that. But part of the NPC, it goes back to the NPC. Part of the NPC meme is drawing on, and why the meme itself is so powerful, why it just cuts people down, is because the NPC can't account for change.
No. It only reacts. It reacts and reflects.
Well, that's how it always has the little code, right? It's got code written.
Yeah.
Is that, no, this is a program that's already here. I can't change the program. All I can do is, if Orange Man does X, then react sequence, And
depending on if you're left or right, it's if triggered, then blah. Or if you're on the right, if dog whistle, then blah.
Yes.
Dog whistles and triggers are exactly the same thing.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Well, I mean, the left dog whistles, no, they don't dog whistle that much, do they? That's what's interesting. Wow, that is interesting. Because you know why? Because they defer less to authority. Because dog whistle requires really like a cult of personality.
Sure. I mean, it is a way of using specific words in specific ways or saying things.
But the person using them has to be an authority. So like they're waiting for, they're tracking. Mm-hmm. They're tracking like 5 or 6 different leaders. Mm-hmm. Waiting for them to say something.
Yeah.
Which is why Trump and his tweeting is so important. That he's tweeting these, because he is dog whistling. Like that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
With it, and you could tell because it's what he capitalizes.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it down.
Yep.
And then they go out into battle. Okay, I've got my orders.
Yeah.
I'm out into battle. Yeah, the left is much more, they much more wait for somebody. It's much more consensus based. It's like, okay, let's wait to see who's triggered. And then they just wait for like the loudest no to come up from somewhere. And they're like, oh, it's that hashtag.
Right.
We wait for, as a survivor of something, survivor of whatever the fuck it is.
As a survivor of the last Republican administration.
As a survivor of the last Republican administration, I'm completely offended that you would say such a thing. That's the equivalent of rape Your tweet is the equivalent of rape. You're a rapist. And they're like, got it.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, mark that guy off the list of Supreme Court justices.
No, I mean, that's how the media pulls and understands, because what they want to do, and it's so fucking cynical on that side, is that what they wait for like, okay, what is trauma? What are people saying is traumatizing them?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because there's fragile individuals out there.
For sure.
And those fragile, and look, there are people who have had real fucking trauma.
Yeah.
There are people who are legitimately triggered. And then there are people who are saying that they're triggered and to virtue signal, but those people are watching the real trauma victims. Mm-hmm. So basically what you have is you've got people who are real, who have real trauma and really get triggered. You have people who are watching them, who are kind of like copycats, like how you have copycat killers.
Oh, yeah.
You have like copycat trauma people.
Mm-hmm.
And those are attention seekers.
Yeah.
So they know I can get attention by playing the victim. So they're watching true victims. Mm-hmm. They watch true victims. So then you have those people. And then you have the people watching for these people, the attention seekers.
Yeah.
And that's usually the media.
Oh, yeah.
And so the cynical aspect of it is they're like, okay, what is traumatizing people? What is traumatizing people? What is traumatizing people? Oh, that's traumatizing people? Do more, say it again to make them be traumatized more. Say it again. Because one, they'll keep tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want some closure.
Oh, yeah.
See, when you've got them traumatized, then something traumatic is there. They need closure. They can't just look away from it.
But it's that way with everything.
With everything.
Every school shooting, every hurricane,
Mm-hmm.
every tornado F5 that comes through.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that people, they get sucked in by the headlines and the news cycle now isn't the 24-hour news cycle that it used to be when newspapers were the main source of news. Now the news cycle is like instantaneous. It's like just all throughout the day. And if there is a thing happening, if you can suck people in and you can get them to continue watching because they want that closure.
Well, they'll watch all day.
All day.
But they're not going to get closure.
No, never.
What happens is it just sort of fades off. There's no fucking punchline. There's no put a bow on it. There's no nothing. But that's part of the whole thing, is that it's like, because there's no closure and it's just fading away, the subconscious is not aware of the facts of the case. Let's just put it like that.
Oh, absolutely not.
The subconscious only knows emotion.
Yeah.
And so you can actually take this trauma and you can, as it starts to peter away and I'm still looking for the closure, you can actually program it into the next story.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. And then it has me following that and then give me the next thing.
Yep.
And that's why people think that, oh, I'm upset about what the person on TV told me to be upset about. What they're getting wrong in that is that, no, they're riding you actually don't know what you're upset about.
No.
You know that you're upset.
Yeah.
You know that you got no closure. The reason why you got no closure is because you did not get introspective. Mm-hmm. You did not say, wait a minute. Does the fact that I'm upset say something about the situation, or does it say something about me?
Right.
Should I be upset about this? Why am I upset about this?
Mm-hmm.
What is the real significance of this?
And why am I not being more analytical? And I think people just skip that part entirely, like especially with the whole Kavanaugh thing. What I noticed was a severe lack of analytical thought in that entire thing.
Yes,
it was
exactly.
100% emotion on both sides.
Yep.
Both sides. And so I'm looking at this like, believe the victim. You always have to believe the woman. Except when it's Bill Clinton. Then it's like, oh, I never had sex with that woman.
Well, except what do you do when one woman accuses another woman?
There you go.
Believe it's self annihilating. Believe all women. No, you can't. There's two women with different stories. And if you had gone back to your Bible, going back to your Bible, get down into that Old Testament, into that good old Bible. No, you go back to King Solomon.
I'm telling you, them motherfuckers need Jesus.
Yeah, they need Jesus. You need Jesus in your life. That's a problem. That's the problem with everything that's happening. No, you go back to Solomon, right? That's the story of the two women.
Yep.
The one that both saying, "This is my child."
Yep.
And then she says, "This is my child." No, this is my child. And Solomon says, "Okay." He doesn't believe all women. He doesn't believe either of them.
Right. He doesn't believe either one of them.
He believes neither.
No.
That's it. What he says is, all right, guard, cut that baby in half. Give one half to each woman.
Yep.
And then the one that's like, no. Oh, and one says, that sounds fair to me.
Yep.
That sounds fair.
Yeah. And the other one's like, no, don't touch my baby.
Please don't give the baby to her.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's the mother.
Yep. Because he knew no matter what happened, the right choice would be made. Because if one woman spoke out and said, no, don't hurt the baby, well, that's the mother. That's the person who should be the mother, even if they're not biologically related.
Yes.
That person cares more about the baby.
Well, see, that's the real story.
Yeah.
Is that we don't actually know. We never really know that actually is the biological mother.
I demand DNA testing.
But again, believe all women. No, don't believe anybody.
And that was the genius of that whole setup, right? Was regardless of what decision came out of it, it was the best for everybody involved.
Because you know what that is? That's justice.
Yeah.
That is a story about justice. And what's interesting...
Not truth.
Not truth. Because
Two different things.
They are completely different.
Yeah.
Truth and justice are completely different. There's this great video. I'm gonna have to find it and send it to you. And it's called like World's Greatest Judge or something like that. It's about some DJ who got arrested after trying to fight some bartender for not giving him a drink at the last thing. But then they didn't pay him for the gig, and then they wouldn't let him back in to get his equipment and all this. And so he got into a fight outside, and then they arrested him, blah, blah, blah. And the judge is like, "Did you get paid?" And he's like, "No." And he said, he's like, "You know what? I think you've gone through enough. You didn't get paid. You didn't." And it's just like, that's justice. It's to look at the entire situation.
Yeah.
And you say, what is the morally right way to handle this? And what's so interesting about the fact that the word justice was either out of the conversation with Kavanaugh or it was not examined is the fact that you are appointing this person to be a justice, a Supreme Court justice. That's what they're called, justices. Mm-hmm. Their job is to it is to judge. You can have the constitutionalists, and that's fine, and I think to a certain degree that's great. But fundamentally, what their job is to do is to administer justice. Mm. And it should be the most just judges. Mm-hmm. It should be those that are known for administering justice.
Yeah.
Not the best constitutional scholar.
No.
Not the one who fits into a particular political mold and follows. And that was the whole thing, that it was like he had some real problems of justice that we didn't get to hear about, because the whole thing, and which is why it worked for both sides. The whole thing ended up being about this shit that happened when he was a teenager. Yeah. Well, can we talk about his Fourth Amendment rulings? Like, can we talk about his actual administration of justice and whether that was adequate? No.
No, because both sides agree with his stance on that, right? Like, so if you have Republicans and Democrats saying, we don't really like the Fourth Amendment, so this guy doesn't like the Fourth Amendment, we're both cool with that.
Right.
Then why would they bring it up?
Which is the most important amendment. Like illegal search and seizure, that is the most important amendment for liberty. There is, I mean, yes, Second Amendment, fine. Yes, First Amendment, fine. But no, it's really all about your door getting broke down off no probable cause.
Yeah.
Off them searching, because it's like, okay, so they searched and they found a gun. But did they have probable cause to even come into your house in the first place?
Yeah.
Really, the Fourth Amendment is like, it's the bedrock.
How the hell did we get away with stop and frisk?
That's what I'm saying.
How did that even be a thing at all?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, Nazi Germany had stop and frisk. And people made
papers, please.
Papers, please. And people made jokes about it and criticized it for years.
Yep.
And then Chicago says, we're going to do the same thing. Yep. And everybody's like, that's a great idea.
It's a great idea. Stop and frisk.
What?
Because it's when it's the other person.
Yeah. Evil Nazis doing it versus the good police officers who were just trying to keep the streets safe.
Right. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. No. I mean, that's... Again, this goes to justice. And I feel like when we get into a scenario, which we are in a scenario now, of all emotion, and it's not, I had a conversation last week with a guy who was trying to talk about, oh yeah, I've reached all my political views, and he had some crazy statist ones. Reached all these political views with objective logic and reason, and I'm like, stop. None of us reach our political views with complete logic and reason. We're all biased.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's what are you biased toward?
Right.
What are you biased toward? Like, are you biased toward that you perhaps sacrifice your preferences from time to time for a principle, for some principle that you've laid out at some point, and you at some point sacrifice your preferences to be like, well, you know what? I would prefer it to be this way, but I do have this principle. If you're following that, I'm okay with that. But that's not logic and reason.
No. It comes down to two choices to me. Do you, in your heart, believe that most people are good?
Right.
Or do you believe that most people are bad? And I find that the people that are overly statist have a disproportionate view that most other people in the world, not them, of course,
right,
but other people in the world are bad and need to be controlled.
Which is crazy because the maximum 5% of the population are psychopaths.
Oh, it can't even be that much. Can't even be that
That's
much.
The maximum. Yeah. That's highballing it.
Yeah.
Right? So that leaves, if someone is not a psychopath, they're fundamentally a good person. Yeah. They may have had some trauma in their life. They may have had, but it's the reason why we can walk through the world without a real, you can be paranoid about shit, but really, when you look at you're walking through a world full of strangers. When was the last time somebody held you up?
Yeah.
When was the last time you were robbed? Honestly. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And even if you live in the hood, even if you live in the worst neighborhoods, then you know what? It may happen once a year.
Think about this. Millions and millions and millions, probably tens of millions of people drive on the road every day. They literally keep themselves within painted lines.
That's right. Just paint it. It's just paint.
Paint.
It's
just paint. Now, I've been to India.
Right.
Those motherfuckers are crazy because they will pack their cars into every spot that is big enough to fit a car. It's still, I mean, not as many accidents as you would think. But here in the U.S., it is so polite and well-behaved. Even the asshole that goes by you too fast and you flip him the bird, whatever.
He's in his lane.
He didn't kill anybody. He's not driving a fucking tank down the road, smashing into other cars.
So let's bring it full circle since we only have about 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And that was what I was saying in my tweet about if you think this NPC meme is about somebody else and not you, because you are driving. Because an Indian from India would be like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
The shoulder is perfectly drivable.
Perfectly drivable. In fact, it's great. There's nobody on it.
There's nobody on it. Yeah.
There's nobody on it.
Except in India when everybody's on it. But yeah.
Right. But
yeah.
you could, like, it could be complete traffic, and then it's like, dude, there's a shoulder.
Yeah.
Just drive. Well, the cops, it's like, dude, there's seriously no cops.
Mm-hmm.
Get on the shoulder.
Go.
You can drive for the next 20 miles.
Yeah.
Nobody's on the shoulder. This is crazy.
The entire median, which in a lot of cases is as wide as a 4-lane road,
That's right,
is not being used.
It's not being used. Get on it. Get on it.
Yeah.
No, because you know why? Because we're all NPCs.
Yeah.
In one way or another, we're all NPCs. And in some ways, it's important that in some things we are NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. I mean, I think about this often to where it's like, you know what, you could get away with, in many scenarios, taking something and just walking away.
Sure.
This is what was crazy. I went with my daughter, my wife, to pick peaches.
Ooh.
Did I tell you this story?
Millions of peaches. Peaches.
Did I tell you this story?
You did not, but it sounds great.
So we went to pick peaches. We went down into Massachusetts. We picked peaches, got in line to pay for the peaches. So first we had to stand in a line to pay.
No. That's so American.
But to get
you
the buckets.
stood in a line. Think about that. You voluntarily stood.
Oh, it gets better.
In a line.
It gets better. So there's just people milling around. There's nobody paying attention, right? We've got the bag and the basket or whatever that they gave us for peaches. So we got in the line. Then I told them, go. There was like little things for kids. Go, play on that. So we're standing in this line. The line took an hour and a half. And it grew to the point where when we got up to paying for the peaches, people were in that line, and I knew this is a 2.5 hour line that these people are in. And people fucking waited.
Yeah.
Now, here's the craziest part about it. They're just peaches picked in this peach thing.
Yep.
You've got the bag.
Yeah.
Literally no one will stop you
Yeah. Walk away.
from just walking with these fucking peaches.
Just walk away.
And they had, and you would have, here's the thing, everybody was grumbling.
Yeah.
Because I can't believe they haven't just added another person to pay for these peaches. They're peaches that you picked off a tree yourself. There's hundreds of thousands of peaches out there, and there's tons of these people in line.
Yeah.
Nobody just walked away with the peaches.
Right.
Nobody.
But yet the world is filled with dangerous people that we need the government to protect us from.
This is what I'm saying. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's really not.
It's not. It's filled with a bunch of people who
Just
will
like us.
sit and wait in a 2.5 hour line to pay $40 for peaches that they picked themselves.
Yeah. That they could have gone to the grocery store and gotten in 5 minutes.
Exactly. That's who in the heat. In the heat. It was hot.
Yeah.
There were flies. There were all kind of insects. You're in the middle of a farm. That's who the world is filled with.
That's the world, people.
That's it. I guess we're all a little NPC at different times.
But it's okay.
We've come up on the end of the show.
We have. I don't have any fancy raps this week.
No?
No.
Okay. Well, I advise everybody to go to vinarmani.com/wine. Go get us a gift certificate because I think we're now down to the last bottle of sponsored wine. So we need some more wine sponsors.
What?
And on that, it's not an either or, it's an and. Go to iTunes. I think we are one review short as of my last looking of 20 reviews.
Oh my God, that is so exciting.
On iTunes. That will get us on the new and notable. That will definitely get us more wine. You guys go do that. iTunes. You can just Google, Vin and Dave's Destination Unknown. And we're
Wink.com.
Wink.com.
Definitely go to Wink.com.
Go to Wink.com.
Give us a gift certificate. That would be awesome.
We would like that.
We will mention you on the air.
Yes. And we are now on Google Play. So those of you who have Android, you can go to, it will be on your Android device. You can go to Play Music. It's generally a native app. Go to Play Music, search Vin and Dave's Destination Unknown. You'll get us there. Be sure to subscribe there. So we will see you guys again next week. I don't know what we're talking about next week, but it will be something good.
I don't know. We didn't decide on this until 4 o'clock this afternoon. So, it could be anything.
But it worked out well.
It was great.
Well. I enjoyed it. Okay, so we will see you guys next week on Vin and Dave's Destination Unknown.